This is story one.
I need to be brutally honest with myself, and maybe with the world too. Right now, I feel like I'm standing at a crossroads in my marriage and in my life. And if I don't face this head on, I might ruin the one thing that matters most to me. My wife, my best friend, and now, the mother of our child. I've been married for 3 years. On paper, my wife is everything a man could ever ask for. She's kind, loyal, gentle-hearted. She's the type of person who will remember to text a friend just to check if they got home safe. The type who notices when a neighbor looks lonely and goes over with cookies. She doesn't have a mean bone in her body. She is good. Purely, beautifully good. But there's this thing, this shadow, that has followed us quietly since the beginning. And only now, with the arrival of our newborn baby, has it grown into a monster. The truth? My wife is slow. And saying that makes me feel like a complete asshole. It sounds cruel, like I'm mocking her, but I swear I'm not. She struggles with things that come naturally to me. I work in IT, problem solving, tech stuff, finding logical steps to fix something. All that is second nature to me. But for her, it's like climbing a mountain blindfolded. There were moments, even before the baby, that highlighted this gap. Like, I've had to FaceTime her multiple times just to show her how to navigate her own banking app. She'd get lost on the most basic screens. Or take humor, for example. Once, I had to sit her down and explain what a meme was. Like, literally spell it out. And even then, she just sort of smiled politely, not really getting it. And here's the kicker. I used to like it. I really did. Part of me enjoyed being the go-to guy, the one who could swoop in and fix things. It made me feel needed. It made me feel like I was adding value to her life. I felt like the strong one, the anchor, and maybe even a little heroic. But everything changed when we brought our son home. He's 1 month old now, and with him, every tiny crack in our relationship suddenly feels like an earthquake. She just doesn't get it. How to hold him right, how to support his head properly, how to change a diaper in a way that doesn't leave him screaming, red-faced, and furious. I've shown her over and over. I've taken her hands and gently guided them. I've stood over her shoulder explaining every step. But somehow, it doesn't stick. She'll do something that makes no sense, something that feels so obviously wrong to me, and then the baby starts wailing. And in those moments, I lose it. I can feel my patience draining out of me like water from a broken cup. I become someone I don't recognize. My words get sharp, my tone gets cold, and I see the way her face falls. The woman I love most, looking at me like I'm the enemy. And in that instant, the guilt hits me harder than anything. Because deep down, I know she's trying. I can see it in her eyes. She wants to be the best mom in the world for our baby. She wants to get it right. She doesn't give up, even when she fumbles. And yet, instead of standing beside her, I've turned into a drill sergeant, barking orders, nitpicking mistakes, making her feel like she's failing at the one role she's dreamed of her whole life. And then, when the chaos dies down, I lie awake at night staring at the ceiling, and the guilt crushes me. What kind of husband am I? What kind of father am I? My wife just gave me the most precious gift in the world, our child. And here I am, tearing her down when she needs me to lift her up.
We're both exhausted. That's part of it too. Newborn life is brutal. Sleepless nights, endless crying, laundry piling up, bottles, burp cloths, a living room that looks like a battlefield. It's supposed to be a team effort, but instead, I've made myself the captain, and her the rookie who can't do anything right. And that's not marriage. That's not partnership. That's cruelty dressed up as leadership. And the scariest thought? If I keep this up, I could lose her. Not because she'll leave me tomorrow, but because I'll chip away at her spirit, day after day, until she's just a shell of the woman she once was. And I can't live with that. So, how do I fix this? How do I stop being so angry, so critical, so impatient? The first step, I think,
is realizing that my wife doesn't need a boss. She doesn't need me to point out every single mistake. She doesn't need me to make her feel like she's failing. She needs me to stand next to her, not above her. To encourage her. To tell her, hey, you did great calming him down just now, even if it wasn't perfect. To say, it's okay, we'll figure this out together, instead of, and taking over. And I need to remind myself that nobody is a natural parent. There's no manual, no perfect instinct that kicks in magically. We're all fumbling in the dark, both of us. The only difference is, I've convinced myself I know better. But maybe I don't. Maybe the baby cries because that's what babies do, not because she's doing it wrong. We need to give each other grace. We need to remember that we're both new at this. That the baby doesn't care if the diaper is on a little crooked, as long as he's safe and loved. And maybe, just maybe, the best thing I can do for my son isn't to be the perfect diaper changer or the expert baby whisperer. The best thing I can do is show him what love looks like. Show him that his mom and dad are a team, that we respect each other, support each other, and forgive each other. That we choose kindness even when we're tired, even when we're frustrated, even when it's hard. I don't want to be the man who breaks my wife's spirit. I want to be the man who lifts her higher, who makes her feel like the incredible mother she already is. And maybe if I can do that, if I can let go of my need to control everything, if I can soften instead of harden, then not only will I save my marriage, but I'll give my son the greatest gift I can. A home filled with love.
This is story 2. Imagine being 14 years old and counting down the hours until you might die. 7 hours left. 7 hours to think. 7 hours to face the biggest gamble of your life. That was me, and this is my story. But before I tell you what happened in that operating room, let me take you back to where it all began. Part 1. Living with pain. I have a rare disease called multiple hereditary exostoses. Sounds complicated, right? Well, it is. Imagine little bone tumors growing everywhere in your body. Knees, fingers, ribs, anywhere. Not cancerous, but painful. Excruciatingly painful. Every day felt like a battle. I lived in constant pain, a solid level 5 on the pain scale. That's not just aches. That's, I can't focus in class. I can't walk more than 2 minutes. I can't even hold a pen to write. At 14, when everyone else was running, laughing, playing, I was trapped in a body that felt like a prison. But what came next would make all of that look small. Part 2. The choice. Doctors said there was one way forward. Surgery. Cutting out tumors from my knees. Removing ribs that had already cracked under pressure. Replacing them with metal. Sounds like science fiction, right? But here's the part that stuck in my head. It's risky. That meant I had a chance of dying on the table. I remember comparing it to rolling dice. If the wrong number came up, I wouldn't wake up. Would you roll that dice? Part 3. My mindset before surgery. Here's the truth. I wasn't afraid. Not because I was brave, but because I was tired. Tired of hurting. Tired of being left behind. Tired of pretending I was okay. I wasn't suicidal. I didn't want to die. But if death came during surgery, at least the pain would finally end. And that's when I realized that the next 7 hours could decide the rest of my life. Part 4. The people around me. My friends didn't get it. They said, "You can't think like that. You're too young. You have to fight." But how do you explain living in constant agony to people who've never felt it? They couldn't understand. My parents, though, they tried to be strong. Smiling, holding my hand, saying it would be okay. But I saw it in their eyes, the fear they didn't want me to notice. Every glance felt like goodbye. And as the clock ticked down, I couldn't stop asking myself, would that be the last time I ever saw them? Part 5. The final hours. The hospital was cold, sterile, the kind of place where time doesn't feel real. Machines beeped, nurses whispered. My body trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of knowing. 6 hours left, 5 hours left, 4. Part 6. The operating room. The lights above me were blinding. The smell of antiseptic stung my nose. Doctors spoke in calm voices, but all I heard was static. Count backwards from 10, they said. 10, 9, 8. Darkness. Was that the end? Part 7. Awakening. Pain. That's the first thing I felt when I woke up. Not relief, not joy, just raw, sharp pain. But then, my heart was still beating, my lungs still filling. I was alive. I had rolled the dice and survived. But survival was only the beginning. The real fight had just started. Part 8. Recovery. The days that followed were brutal. Every breath hurt. Every step felt impossible. But I pushed. One step, then another. Slowly, painfully. I walked again. Not perfectly, not without pain. But I walked. And with every step I realized something. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living. Part 9. Years later, now I'm 16. Still sick, still fighting. Chronic illness doesn't disappear. It lingers, reminding me every day that life is fragile. But that's okay. Because I've learned to live with it, not against it. Looking back, I realized those 7 hours weren't just a countdown to surgery. They were a countdown to a new chapter of my life. Closing. Reflection. So here's what I'll leave you with. Sometimes, life gives you impossible odds. Sometimes, you have to roll the dice, even if you're terrified of the outcome. And sometimes, you wake up, alive. This is Story 3. It started out like any other Monday morning. The air in our office was unusually light, considering it was the first day of the week. 8 of us had gathered in the conference room for a meeting, including one of the VPs and our CFO. The energy was warm. Colleagues chatting about weekend barbecues, kids heading back to school, funny little mishaps from family gatherings. We weren't just co-workers in that moment. It felt like a circle of old friends catching up before diving into business. Laughter echoed off the walls, and even the usually serious VP cracked a smile. 7 of us were already seated when the last person walked in. Now, this guy, let's call him Mark, wasn't known for being the friendliest. He kept to himself most of the time, never really engaging in small talk or casual conversations. He was the kind of coworker you nodded at in the hallway but rarely connected with. He entered the room, scanned the table, and his eyes landed on one of our CPAs. Let's call her Susan. She's a gentle soul, always respectful, always professional, the kind of person who speaks only when she has something meaningful to add. She had a Dunkin' drink in front of her that morning, a culotta, topped with whipped cream and colorful drizzle. Honestly, it looked like dessert in a cup. And then it happened. Mark smirked, tilted his head, and without hesitation said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Man, one of those will kill your whole month's worth of salads. All that time and money you've been wasting just went down the drain. Ha ha ha." The room froze. At first, it felt like time stopped. Susan, who had been smiling just seconds before, immediately dropped her gaze into her lap. Her face flushed red, and you could see her fighting back tears. She had, in fact, been making a conscious effort these past few months. Salads for lunch, smaller portions, turning down sweets in the break room. Everyone knew it. And here was Mark, in front of her peers, dismissing all her effort with one cruel, careless comment. The laughter from earlier evaporated. You could hear the hum of the air conditioner, the faint buzz of fluorescent lights. Nobody spoke. Nobody chuckled. Not a single person backed him up. And then, before any of us could process what was happening, the CFO stood up. His chair scraped across the floor with a sound that made the silence even heavier. His face was stone serious. He looked directly at Mark and said in a voice that carried absolute authority, "This company has always had a zero-tolerance policy regarding bullying, body shaming, and creating toxic workplaces. Your termination is effective immediately." You could see the blood drain from Mark's face. He turned pale, frozen in disbelief. His eyes darted around the room, as if searching. Career here had just ended. Finally, without a word, he turned and walked out of the room. The CFO followed right behind him. The sound of their footsteps fading down the hallway felt like thunder after lightning. When the door closed, we all just sat there, stunned. The meeting we had scheduled no longer mattered. Nobody was thinking about quarterly reports or budgets anymore. The only thing on everyone's mind was what had just happened. For the next hour, it was all anyone could talk about. Some whispered in disbelief. Some nodded in agreement. And others admitted they felt a sense of relief, that someone had finally drawn a line. One of my coworkers quietly told me that the CFO's own middle school-aged daughter had been relentlessly bullied at school for the past couple of years. Suddenly, his reaction made perfect sense. To him, this wasn't just about a workplace comment. It was personal. And here's the thing. Everyone in that room was over 40 years old. We're not kids anymore. At our age, you'd expect maturity, empathy, and self-awareness. Yet, this moment was a stark reminder that words still carry power, and cruelty, no matter how small someone thinks it is, can shatter another person's spirit. The incident became the firing heard around the office. It wasn't just about Mark losing his job. It was about a culture being reinforced, a message being sent loud and clear. This is a place where respect matters, where people matter. Looking back, I can't help but think, if Susan had gone home that day feeling humiliated instead of protected, how much would that have crushed her? Instead, she got to see that her workplace stood up for her, immediately, and without hesitation. That kind of support is rare, so yes, it was shocking to see someone fired on the spot. But it was also unforgettable, and maybe, just maybe, it set a standard that will protect others in the future.